Are we in an overheated housing market? Is the government going to make immediate policy changes to cool it down? The market has been flooded with news over the past couple of weeks. And if you just look at the headlines, they can certainly be very confusing. Some banks came out to say that the government needs to take immediate actions to cool down the market. But then some banks also came out to say, hold on guys, let's just wait and see before making any rush policy changes. So in today's video, I'm going to pick out some of the most popular headlines and we will dive in to see what they are really saying. Headline number 1. Toronto home sales up 97% in March. Prices up as demand outstrips new listings. Headline from Global News. I'm sure you have seen similar headlines everywhere. Well, first of all, it is not that crazy. It sounds like sales were doubled, but we are talking about March. Remember March 2020? The first half was normal. Then the middle of March marked the first time ever in our lives to experience a lockdown. Of course, everyone panicked back then and sales took a deep dive down. If we just compare the second half of March last year versus this year, sales were actually up 174%. If we isolate just the first half of March, up 41%. So that's how the 97 came out when you look at March altogether as a whole. I mean, 41% more sales is still a lot, but it is definitely not as crazy as the 97% may sound. In terms of prices, low-rise prices are generally up more than 20% and condo prices are only up around 2%. If you think the Toronto market has gone crazy, let's take a look at the year-over-year percentage change in average prices across all provinces in Canada. Let's start with Ontario. Average prices up 24.5%, which is similar to what we are seeing in Toronto. Quebec, up 22.5%. New Brunswick, up 20.9%. Nova Scotia, up 30.4%. Moving towards the west, Manitoba, up 14.5%. Saskatchewan, up 8%. Alberta, up 8.5%. British Columbia, up 17.1%. Going up north, Yukon, up 7.5%. Northwest Territories, up 48.1%. You see, average prices have gone up all across the country, from 7% to almost 50%. You might think that investors are driving the prices up in big cities like Toronto and Vancouver. But the average price increase was only around 20%, which actually lags some other provinces. And here's the thing. The average price increase in Toronto was mainly driven by detached homes and townhouses. Condos are much more investor heavy, but the prices have pretty much stayed the same so far. This is pointing to the fact that the hot markets are driven by real demands. So why is Canadian housing demand so strong? I can sum it up with 4 reasons. Number 1, interest rates are at rock bottom low. I recently got a mortgage at 1.33%, 5 years variable. That's unbelievably low. And the Bank of Canada has committed to low rates until 2023. Number 2, household savings are at record highs because people have nowhere to spend money. Number 3, people are spending a lot more time at home, so they want to upgrade and look for a better home. Number 4, FOMO, fear of missing out. People fear that if they don't get into the market now, they would be priced out soon. You see, when all four things happen at the same time, the result is a red-hot market. This brings us to headline number 2. Canadian housing fire needs a response. BMO published a special economic report at the end of March urging policymakers to act immediately to cool down the housing market. The report suggested a few policy changes that the BMO economists believe could immediately break market psychology. Suggestion number 1. The Bank of Canada could hike rates, or at least back off from its committed to hold policy rates at near zero until 2023. Interest rates have a much bigger impact than just the housing market. The whole economy would be affected. So I don't think it makes sense to change the interest rate just to cool the housing market, because that may hurt the whole economic recovery. Suggestion number 2. Implement an offer system that eliminates blind bidding in real estate transactions. So they think that if we have an open bidding system, this would prevent people from paying high prices. This is the exact opposite of the current Realtors Code of Ethics, where the substance of the offer can't be disclosed. Interesting suggestion, but it is probably not that easy to change the Code of Ethics. Suggestion number 3. If you purchase a residential property and sell it within 5 years, then you need to pay a special capital gain tax. I totally agree on this one. Real estate is meant to be a long-term investment. If you buy and flip, you pay extra taxes. That's fair. But here's the thing. This tax would only be effective if the market is driven by flippers. When the current market is mainly driven by end users, then the cooling effect of this speculation tax would just be minimal. Suggestion number 4. Remove the capital gain tax exemption on principal residences, so people will start paying capital gain tax on their primary residences. Let's suppose you want to get into the market and own a home right now. So I tell you that many years down the road, if you make some money on your home, then you need to pay some taxes on the gain. Is that going to discourage you from buying a home? The tax could potentially discourage some current homeowners from moving. But that would also mean less supply on the market. Even the BMO report itself rates this suggestion very high complexity and low impact on cooling the market. When there are real needs in the market, it is very hard to kill the demand with a policy change. Remember 2017. The low-rise market was on fire with record high prices. Then the government introduced the 15% non-resident speculation tax. The low-rise market crashed. So you might think that the policy change took effect to cool down the market. But if you take a look at the condo market, prices had actually been going all the way up since the crash in the low-rise market. You see, I wouldn't say the speculation tax worked, but rather low-rise homes got so expensive to a point that the demand shifted from low-rise to high-rise condos. And then there was so much demand for condos that the prices kept going up. Doesn't this sound similar to the situation we are having now? The price gap between the low-rise and high-rise is widening, and soon the demand would naturally shift back to the condo market. And so we have headline number 3. TD CEO cautious against rush to regulations in response to ballooning home prices. His view is that a lot of the factors acting fuel to the housing market are pandemic related. When the vaccines take effect and people are back to work, we might be seeing different trends. That's why he is against to rush to implement immediate policy changes. It makes more sense to wait and see instead of just saying, "Oh my God, let's go solve something." I would say the only way to effectively cool the market with a lot of demand is to increase supply. And the supply bottleneck is primarily due to the rules and regulations governing new constructions. So the government should really work on that end to increase supply. Until things improve on the supply end, it will be very hard for prices to come down. I would expect the Toronto market to continue to be strong for the remaining of 2021. If you find values in this video, make sure you subscribe and hit the bell so you keep getting more and more values.